You're driving home from work when red and blue lights fill your rearview mirror. Your stomach drops. You reach for your wallet and realize something worse than speeding. Your license expired 3 weeks ago. Most drivers think an expired license is a paperwork problem. It is not. It is a legal status change, and the moment those lights flash behind you, that status becomes the officer's business. What happens in the next 10 minutes depends on laws most people have never read. Let's start with why the officer can even stop you in the first place. The Supreme Court settled this in Delaware v. Prowse in 1979. The court ruled that police cannot randomly stop vehicles just to check licenses and registration without some specific reason. There has to be a traffic violation, a broken taillight, a rolling stop, something observable. So if you're pulled over, it's rarely about the license itself at first. It's about whatever the officer saw before they ever knew your license had expired. Once you're stopped, the clock starts ticking, and it ticks in a very specific legal way. In Rodriguez v. United States in 2015, the Supreme Court ruled that police cannot extend a traffic stop beyond the time reasonably required to handle the original violation unless they develop new reasonable suspicion. Translation? The officer can't just hold you forever fishing for problems. But here's the twist. An expired license is not a fishing expedition. It's a new violation, discovered the second your ID gets run. And that changes everything about how long you'll be standing on the side of that road. So what actually happens when the system flags your license as expired? It depends on how expired it is, and this is where most drivers get surprised. Picture this. You hand over your license. The officer walks back to the cruiser. Computer screen glows. A few keystrokes. Then they come back, and their tone has shifted slightly. Not hostile, just more procedural. In most states, if your license expired recently, within a grace period that's often somewhere between 30 and 90 days. Depending on the state, you'll likely just get a citation. A fix-it ticket? Renew your license? Show proof to the court or DMV? And the charge often gets dismissed. California Vehicle Code. Section 12,500 makes driving without a valid license a misdemeanor, but courts routinely treat a recently expired license differently than someone who never had one at all. The penalty is built around intent and how long the lapse has been. An officer running your name and seeing a license that expired last month is not seeing the same red flag as one that expired 3 years ago. But stretch that gap out, and the legal weight shifts dramatically. An expired license held for years can read very differently in a database. It can trigger questions about whether you're avoiding renewal because of a suspension you don't want flagged, a vision problem you haven't reported, or unpaid fines tied to your driving record. Suddenly, this isn't a paperwork lapse. It's a pattern. Now, here's where most people don't expect the next legal layer. Can you actually be arrested for this? The unsettling answer is yes. In Atwater v. City of Lago Vista, decided in 2001, the Supreme Court ruled that police can make a full custodial arrest for even a minor offense, including ones that would normally just warrant a citation. The case involved a seatbelt violation, not a license issue, but the legal principle applies broadly. If your state classifies driving without a valid license as a misdemeanor, and many do, an officer technically has the discretion to arrest you, not just ticket you. In practice, most officers don't escalate that far for a simple expiration. But the legal authority exists, and that gap between what usually happens and what legally can happen is exactly where anxiety lives for a lot of drivers. Let's reconstruct the moment fully now. You're standing at your open window. The officer has your license in hand. They're deciding, almost instantly, which version of this stop you're going to get. A warning, a citation, or, in rare and specific cases, something more serious. What tips that decision? Your driving record, how recently it expired, whether there's anything else attached to your name, like a suspension you didn't know about, or unpaid tickets sitting quietly in the system. The expired license itself is rarely the whole story. It's the door that opens the rest of the file. Here's the counterintuitive twist almost nobody expects. Driving with an expired license is, in many states, treated less seriously by courts than driving with a license that was actively suspended or revoked. That sounds backwards. Shouldn't expired be worse since you knew it lapsed? But suspension and revocation usually mean a court or DMV actively took the privilege away, often for something serious like a DUI or accumulated points. Expiration just means you forgot or delayed a renewal. The law tends to separate carelessness from consequence. One is a mistake, the other is a punishment already imposed. Judges and prosecutors see that difference clearly, even when drivers don't. This is also where the NHTSA's broader traffic enforcement data becomes useful context. Most license-related stops resolve at the citation level, not the arrest level. The system, in practice, is built to nudge people back into compliance, not to escalate every lapse into a courtroom drama. That doesn't mean it's risk-free. It means the risk scales with how long you've ignored it and what else is attached to your record when the officer types in your name. So what should you actually do if this happens to you? Stay calm. Be honest about the expiration if asked, since lying to an officer can create a separate problem entirely. Ask, respectfully, what the next steps look like because procedures vary by state and even by county. And here's the part worth saying clearly. None of this is personalized legal advice. Laws differ from state to state. Penalties differ by jurisdiction. And your specific record can change every outcome described here. If you're facing an actual charge, the only reliable next step is talking to a licensed attorney in your state who can look at your specific situation. Now think about the next time you check your wallet. That little plastic card with a date printed in small text. Most drivers glance past it for years, but that date is a quiet legal deadline, sitting in your pocket waiting for the one moment you least expect, lights in your mirror, an officer at your window, and a piece of paper that decided weeks ago whether tonight is routine or complicated. You're driving home from work when red and blue lights fill your rearview mirror. This time, though, you already know what's in your wallet, and you already know what happens next.